Have you ever wondered what objects are made of? What are we made of? What are the things you see every day made of? If you have ever thought of the atom, then you are in the right place. But what do we know about the atoms? Some 2,000 years ago, our ancestors searched high and low to find the answers. What was the universe made of? And most importantly, what are we made of? Ancient Greece, home to the most brilliant minds of the old civilization. Two of the most known philosophers at that time, Democritus and Lysippus, had the first concept of what we call the atoms.
Democritus, together with Lysippus, what they did was they turned the basic understanding of what the Greeks know about the universe into something much more complex.
This concept will serve as basis to support the theories of the future scientists and will change the way you and I see the world.
For example, he put a rock, and then he explained to Lysippus that objects has its limits where it can't be divided any further, and thus he called it atoms.
Democritus and Lysippus believed that atoms make up the whole universe, a matter that is constantly moving in the void, a matter so indestructible, impenetrable, and uncuttable, hence calling it atomos.
They had the right vision of atoms. They knew about the basics. And some, well, they're even still taught today.
Ancient Greeks didn't believe them. They believed more about the four elements making up the whole universe, including the brilliant philosopher Aristotle.
Aristotle was the kind of guy who believed more to what he was taught rather than what he was exposed to. For example, Plato believed in elements, as well as Socrates, who also believed in elements.
Aristotle said that it is against the gods to believe in atoms. He believed that only air, earth, water, fire, and ether make up the universe. And Greeks did accept his concept. 1,000 years later, during the Enlightenment era, the birth of science, an English chemist has recovered Democritus and Lysippus' idea of the atom and served as one of the stepping stones to unlock the mysteries of the universe.
John Dalton was like a bridge. He made it possible for some of the scratch of the ancient philosophers who believed in atoms to pass through the 18th century up to the present.
John Dalton believed that atoms cannot be created nor destroyed.
In the 20th century, most of what we know about atoms today were discovered. It was like the golden age of science.
In his book of multiple proportions, he proposed that atoms of a certain element have the same properties. Atoms may combine, separate, or rearrange. Many years passed, and these works were revised, as new knowledge about the atoms were uncovered. It all started with J.J. Thomson, with his known cathode ray experiment.
The concept was based from a negatively charged electrode traveling to a tube-like device. What he did was he fired a cathode ray and noticed that it was attracted to a positively charged plate. He then proposed that there must be a negatively charged particle occupying in the certain area of the atom.
In the plum pudding model of the atom, the electrons occupy a certain region of space that had a uniform positive charge. This positive charge particle was later named by Ernest Rutherford. He called it the protons. Now the electrons and protons were believed to be uniformly distributed in the atom. Until such time, the Goldfarb experiment was carried out by two students of Rutherford, Hans Geiger and Ernest Marsden.
Now what these two observed from the alpha particle that was fired through the foil has truly made an evolution to what they knew about the atom back then. They called Rutherford to observe the rays that bounced back from the foil. He concluded that protons were present in the dense part of the atom.
The team noticed that some particles passed through the gold foil. They concluded that neutral particles exist in the atoms. They call this the neutrons. And so they proposed the nuclear model of the atom. Ernest Rutherford has won a Nobel Prize for this. Later on, a scientist, same of Rutherford's idea, has risen to make a judgment out of the model. He proposed in his theory that electrons move through orbits with increasing or decreasing energy.
As Bohr had a problem with how he was going to reason out about how his conclusions with jumping electrons happen. So, another scientist from another institute suggests that electrons don't jump, maybe they move in a wave-like motion, hence making electrons appear from one place to the other.
Louis de Broglie, a French physicist, wrote a message to propose to Albert Einstein his idea. Einstein did not approve Bohr's concept. And so, in October 1927, the most notable date for notable scientists to gather up to discuss about the newly formulated quantum theory was held during the Solvay conference in Copenhagen.
Well, Louis de Broglie suggested that electrons move in a wave motion, right? Erwin Schrödinger proposed that it was much easier to explain if the electrons were treated as if it was in a wave-like motion. But Wolfgang Pauli explained that this exclusion principle says that there is an only certain number of energy level of electrons that can occupy. And Heisenberg explained his uncertainty principle, but after all these, most points just went to the radical side.
Modern understanding of the atom depended on the quantum mechanical model. It is surprising that most of what we know about atoms came from the ideas of brilliant scientists. The every tiny bit of information you see now is just atoms melting together to form a one big image of an object. The every tiny bit of information you see now is all atoms coming together to form a one big image of an object. It is clearly understood that we humans are made of atoms. The things you see every day